Hello, welcome to lecture number 7 in Ecclesiology. And in this particular lecture, we're going to examine some of the images and the forms and the structures of the church, first of all in the Bible, in the Scriptures, and then through history, and try to say something about the various structures and images of the church we have today and what their meaning is. So we're going to talk about images in general first, and then we're going to deal with the minor images of the church, and then with some of the more telling images like the body of Christ and other things like that. And so let's begin by saying something about the scope and the method of this study. It's very difficult to employ methods which are congenial to the thought patterns of the New Testament world and our own. They're so different. We've talked about this before. In fact, it's a perennial problem in all theology and biblical interpretation, is that words and phrases and more particular symbols or ideas that had one meaning in the New Testament world, first century, frequently have quite different connotations and meanings. Sometimes it's quite a developed meaning, and by the time it gets 2,000 years later, obviously. At other times, it's totally different. Because there are great contrasts there. When you think of the wandering band of disciples of Jesus and compare that to the big, powerful, prosperous social institutions that make up the church today, it's kind of hard to see any relationship there. When we read the Sermon on the Mount and we see the radical pacifism there, it's hard to relate that to many of the forms of the church today as great power politics and all kinds of public relations machineries in place to promote the institution. And when you see that in the New Testament it was a lay movement in the main, and it was hostile to the whole temple clique that made up established religion in Jerusalem, it's kind of hard to take that little band of radicals and compare them to all the priestly hierarchy that monopolizes church life in many liturgical churches today. And when we think of the simplicity and the informality of worship that seemed to characterize the early church, and then we look at the elaborate ceremony